I'm James Ford, and I have the enormous pleasure of being a member of the Empty Moon Zen Sangha, currently serving as the guiding teacher. If you follow my blog, you may be aware that I've been kind of wrestling with the questions of where I've arrived. How has this journey, particularly this Zen Buddhist journey, shaped my my being, and out of that, my thinking? What is it that I understand out of many years of practice? I found myself thinking of an Emily Dickinson poem, and tell it all, tell the truth, but tell it slant. Success in circuit lies too bright for our infirm delight. The truth's suburb surprise, as lightning to the children eased, with explanation kind, the truth must dazzle gradually, or every man be blind. A number of years ago, I kind of settled on, when I looked in myself, a confession of what I call the physiology of faith. Most of you probably have endured my repeating this in the past, but so I'll try to keep it as short as possible. I lifted it from a famous anecdote about Erasmus, the great theologian and philosopher. One Friday he was sitting down and he was eating a sausage, and it was Friday. He's a Catholic priest. His friend said, "What's with this? You should be eating fish, a Catholic definition of fasting." And he said, "Alas, my heart is a Catholic, but my stomach, it's Lutheran." And it really works for me. I realize I have a physiology of faith, and it's been part of who I am for I don't know, very, very long time. I say I have a Buddhist brain. How I see the world, how I understand the world is definitely Buddhist, and much of what I'm going to share with you today is going to focus on that. At the same time, I have a Christian heart. I learned how to read from the King James Bible. The images of Scripture simply are the way my life, my dream life, takes shape. And I have a humanist stomach, or a rationalist stomach, or a naturalist stomach. I simply have to find what I encounter in my being. It has to resonate in some manner with the natural world as I've come to understand it, particularly in the light of our Western scientific paradigms. I think there are problems within the rational community of confusing this process for the thing itself, and an inclination to a kind of a reductionism that often misses the point of life. But nonetheless, there shouldn't be a great offense to reason in anything that we find in our lives, and that's just a North Star for me on my quest. So that comes us to thinking about what is this Buddhist thing? What is this Zen thing? What are the teachings that we can see to guide us on our own way? And for me, probably the first part, originally it would have been the Four Noble Truths. They certainly, lay out the issues, and then, point to this three-part path, where we have our disciplines of Zazen and koan introspection, for us particularly, but other traditions would have slight variations, and or big, and the ethical life, the container. We're soon, many of us are going to be taking the 5 precepts, and we also do 16 precepts. These ceremonies are setting our intentions to realize that we live within a world of causality, and that we are wise to find a harmonious way, and we do. Yeah. And the third is the great insight. What is the you lift the curtain, and what is there, and for me, as I've matured in my practice, or at least I've aged into it, is I find what are sometimes called the 4 marks of existence are perhaps the foundational thing for me. The great observation of Buddhism. They originally, they're categorized as 3 marks, and I was kind of rummaging around trying to figure out where this comes from, and I saw that actually the earliest attestation that I noticed in my brief ruminations are actually found in the Dhammapada, which is itself part of the Khuddaka Nikaya, which is, I think, the 5th category of the Nikayas, the Pali versions of the life and teachings of Gautama Siddhartha. It's their conceit. They're the oldest strata of all forms of Buddhism, and in some ways that may be true. And the Dhammapada is probably the universally loved Buddhist text. It's one of those ones that, because it's just sayings, and it's kind of like the Gospel of Thomas, just logia. But that's where we find the first clear expression of the 3 marks, and they're kind of like cut to the chase for our human hearts. The one thing is that everything made of parts is going to come apart. I am composed of many things coming together, causes and conditions, and they range from genetics to all my life experiences, and everything in between. It's just the mess, and it's all going to fall apart. It's going to fall apart. Humans die, cats die, stars die. And the second point is there's no abiding self. There's no soul in the sense of some little monad that's inside me that's ultimately unaffected by this stuff and is going to survive. The reality is there is a real self. I got an ego. I got a thing, but it's mutable. Who I am is not who I was 10 years ago. Not who I was 60 years ago, and it's mortal. I am mortal. All things are mortal. Then the third mark is the motion of things. This rising and falling is dynamic and expressive, and I call it the buzz. It's just the play of the universe. The catch is that it's ultimately unstable because it's constantly changing. And in the human heart, as I experience it, and as the Buddha said, all humans experience it. Actually, he said all things experience it because everything's in flesh. But it looks like humans in particular, we encounter it mainly in an uncomfortable way. It becomes existential angst. It becomes anguish. It's the thing it's the worm in the cocktail of life. And I think in the latent parts of it, it tells us everything's going to change. Everything's changing. Call it dukkha. Now, in the Mahayana, there grew to be an understanding of a 4th mark of existence. It's again found elsewhere, but it gets put together as this little package of like the really core things that we get out of Buddhism. Again, I was noodling around, and it seems that there are two Mahayana texts that we see beginning to be put together as something called the Foundation for Yoga Practitioners, but especially something called the Questions of the Naga King Sagara. And Nagas are those dragon kings that feature prominently in Nagarjuna's discovery of the Prajnaparamitas. This fourth mark is that there actually is a way through the hurt, through the buzz, through that human experience of suffering, and I find it really paired with that specifically. It is sometimes it's called nirvana, sometimes it's just called peace. Now, with that, I find that two other things really critical as for me in my understanding of what Buddhism has to offer, what we learn as we practice together, as we study and engage koans, as we most importantly sit quietly and just witness, allow the world to appear and to play and to be. And so with the four marks of existence, I think you need the two truths, and actually I think the two truths demand something called the three bodies of the Buddha. The two truths are there is this natural world of things rising and falling, of cause and effect, in our human realms of good and evil, certainly of ill and good consequences to our actions and even our thoughts, and against that is an assertion that reality is just wide open, absolutely boundless. Maybe you can express it as potentiality. It's the brightness that Emily sings to us about, which can equally be described nothingness, because all categories dissolve in it. All we do is approach it in our cognitive world. But within the Buddhist frame, there's this miracle of human consciousness that we notice, that we can actually apprehend this. Now, it's a recessive understanding. You can't live there, but you do need it. It is it's the family name, bright, empty, possible, boundless. So much of our practices are put to seeing that, to experiencing that, to tasting and touching it. The whole of the koan enterprise as a discipline, as it evolves from over the many generations, is to allow us first to tumble out of our normal sense of the world as in the realm of cause and effect, and to notice there's some other facet behind it. Behind's not a good phrase, but let it stand as a placeholder. We need to see that boundlessness. And then we need to see how we, as individuals, relate to that. And then we need to absolutely notice that other things are there. This world is multitudinous, and there is an other and a me, and they're connected. Now, we know the phrase form and emptiness. In the Heart Sutra, which we just chanted, a form is emptiness, emptiness is form. And just in case, form is exactly emptiness, and emptiness is exactly form. However, in our lived lives, especially as we engage this practice, and it seems even if we don't engage this practice, if we just open our hearts and allow ourselves to live in this world as it actually presents, we discover there's kind of a third place that emerges. Maybe it emerges out of the oscillations of form and emptiness in our consciousness, and that takes us to the three bodies of the Buddha. Let's see. It appears actually the first attestation occurs in one of the volumes of the Prajnaparamita Sutra, the same cycle of text that the Heart Sutra is kind of near the culmination point of. And there's actually one further down that reduces everything to the Sanskrit which means not no, and for those of us who do koans, mu. But backing up, the perfection of wisdom in 8,000 verses or lines, and I can't remember now. I forgot to look, but I think that appears right around the dawn of the Christian era. It gets further developed in a philosophical school of Buddhism called the Yogacara, which no longer exists, but you see its echoes in both Pure Land and especially in the Zen traditions. East Asian Buddhism writ large is very much touched by much of Yogacara and the three bodies. Here we revisit the phenomenal world. They call it Nirmanakaya, and it's the body of the Buddha in history, and the Buddha who is born, lives, teaches, dies. But the Buddha is also a Dharmakaya, which is that boundless place, the empty place, the spot where all categories burn away, which is, also who we are and what we are. And then it introduces the third place, and in its first formulations, it's the realm of magic. It's bilocation and astral traveling, and all that kind of cool stuff. And for those of us of a more naturalistic biological disposition, it's the dream realm. It's the world that opens when we begin to loosen our sense of the confines of this world, as the five, or in Buddhism 6 senses, really however many senses there really are. When we let go of the death grip, it begins to get lively. Things happen. For me, actually, I was blessed at a critical spot in my training to be introduced to archetypal psychology, and it's never much of one for Carl Jung. I thought he, like Freud, they're great poets of the heart, but then everybody starts getting really. They start making lists that don't actually seem to correspond to reality. Like Freud's ego and superego and id. You can't cut into the brain and find those things. They're great placeholders for phenomena. Jung kind of does that as well, but both Freud and Jung, their MDs really got in their way. They really wanted things to be science when they're moving into something else. Archetypal psychology kind of focuses in on the images and particularly through a guy named James Myoun, soul gets held up. My primary Zen teacher, John Tarrant, he got into a lot of hot water. I mean, he's always in hot water, but early on, because he also was an archetypalist, and he really liked the word soul and what that might mean. And in Zen circles, because back to the whole Buddhist thing, that there is no abiding self, and soul usually is the word that people attach to the idea of something that's untouched by this. He introduces it as a perspective, and I found it's the perspective that often emerges when we open ourselves to the third body, that we've delved into. We already live in the the world of forms and choices, but also as we delve into the realm of the absolute, as we've surrendered into that and we begin to touch it and live with in its general vicinity, then this third body emerges. At least it has for me. And then we're open to new angles on things. For me, it allowed me to kind of reclaim my childhood wisdoms, especially the thing in Judaism that's packaged as the story of Exodus. You know, the exile in Egypt and everything that happens that leads to the promised land. And what I realize is that my awakening actually is not just my awakening. It's a communal journey. It's me, but it's also you, and it's this poor, sore, hurt world. And the themes of Exodus are very much the themes of the emerging Buddhism of my heart. Similarly, the God crazy saint who wandered in the near East and babbled these mysteries. How the kingdom of God is at hand, and the kingdom of God is within, and he becomes for me Maitreya. The teaching of the individual becomes the teaching of the community. It's all of us. Here we are, the Buddha way together, and for me particularly, it calls for some kind of alignment, specifically with the poor and the disenfranchised and the people who are victims of racism. The list is really long. Sadly, the list is long. We other all the time, and there seems to be some sort of call, at least I find in my heart, as I open on this Buddha way, to see how much of me is in the other, and especially the ones who have not been given the breaks. I suspect actually when the Buddha talked about remembering past lives, the invitation for us is to remember our lives, our other people's lives. We're all bound up together, and the mystery is unfolding constantly. In the Oxfording pictures, returning to the world with bliss-bestowing hands, the mystery, the Zen way, the Buddha way. The best I can present it in this moment. I'm kind of hoping I'll have a few more moments to get it a little closer to right. But in the meantime, thank you. And I really do hope that you find some of this helpful on your own way, and that together we all can, as Sung San would say, wake up quick and save this poor, broken world.